After years and years of losing seasons and disappointment after disappointment under Scott Frost, the Nebraska Cornhuskers enter a new head coach in Matt Rhule, and he is really starting to get this program up off the ground already. They've gotten in some great talent to add with the roster they've already got, and expectations in Lincoln are getting pretty high. So will Matt Rhule and company end up maybe even winning the Big Ten West in a surprise 2023 campaign? Or will the Huskers need that 1 year under Matt Rhule to really start to get things moving in future years? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams, which means I'm doing your favorite team. Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell if you want to see my thoughts on your favorite team. And there are more ways than that you can help support my channel. You can, well, I should say you're doing one right now by watching the video, but you can also like, comment, and share. Really anything else you guys can think of to help interact and support my channel would mean a lot to me. Nebraska in 2023, very, very interesting team, and I think this team is going to be a lot of fun to watch this coming season. Hey, how do we do preview predictions around here? We're going to go through a roster overview, take a look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in by way of the transfer portal and recruiting class. And then we're going to take a look at the 2023 football schedule for the Nebraska Cornhuskers and break it down with a game-by-game preview and prediction. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I give you your Nebraska Cornhuskers in 2023. Starting out with the offense, the most important position on the field, the quarterback room is definitely going to look different, as Casey Thompson was the figured starter entering 2023, and he, well, maybe not surprisingly to some, but surprisingly to others, transferred out of this Nebraska program. 2,407 yards with 63% completion, 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He had his good moments, but overall was just okay. Did have some injuries last year as well. And then Logan Smothers transferring out as well. Jeff Sims is coming in, a 4-star rated transfer out of Georgia Tech, again, according to 24/7. He's very much so a Matt Rhule style quarterback, and I think Matt Rhule likes him a lot. Obviously, Casey Thompson wouldn't have transferred if he didn't think he was going to get his starting job back. Jeff Sims will be your starting quarterback for the Cornhuskers in 2023, and I think that's a very good option for Nebraska fans. Jeff Sims can throw the ball, he can run the ball, he's a very good dual threat option. I think he's going to be a scary player for opposing defenses next season. In the running back room, A.J. Allen, your second leading rusher from last year, is gone, as well as a depth piece in Jacques Yant. You do return your leading rusher from last season, who had a phenomenal first year, 218 carries, 915 yards, and 6 touchdowns in Anthony Grant, and then some depth in the running back room include Gabe Ervin, Ramir Johnson, among some other names as well. Wide receiver-wise, you do lose your leading receiver in pretty much every category by a mile. 71 catches, 1,043 yards, and 9 touchdowns for Trey Palmer, who has left the program, as well as Oliver Martin, Alante Brown, and Dakotas Crawford. I shouldn't say left the program for Trey Palmer, going to the NFL. More like it there, right? But Oliver Martin, Alante Brown, Dakotas Crawford have all gone on to someplace else as well. Marcus Washington, Xavier Betts, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, going to be some options in the wide receiver room. Marcus Washington, that second leading receiver last year, of course, behind Trey Palmer. Garcia Castaneda is definitely a very interesting option. Was supposed to work out well for the Cornhuskers last year, but really never found his role, was going to transfer. Now he's back. We'll see what happens there. Then you get a couple transfers coming in that I think Husker fans should really like. Josh Fleeks comes over from Baylor, and Billy Kemp could end up being the number 1 receiver on this team, an underrated 3-star rated transfer out of Virginia. Oh, and you also get a highly touted freshman in Malachi Coleman, number 1 player in the state of Nebraska, 66th overall player, according to 24/7 Sports. Tight end room, well, Travis Vokalek has gone, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, was a great piece in the tight end room last season. You're going to return Thomas Fidone. Hopefully he stays healthy, as well as Borkercher, who's not on this list, does come back as well, as you get a transfer coming in over by way of LSU and most recently Georgia in Arik Gilbert. We'll see how much playing time he gets on the field. Offensive line, Brock Bando, Bretton Banks, Hunter Anthony are gone. You're going to return. Now, I probably butcher names here, and I apologize profusely, but Turner Kokorin, Nureddin Nueli, I believe, is back from suspension, so he'll play, and then Teddy Prochaska comes back as well. Defensively, what is this team losing and returning and gaining? Well, you're going to lose a couple real good guys on the defensive line, and Oshwan Mathis and Colton Feist, right around 45 tackles last year. Or, excuse me, right around 48 tackles for Mathis, 46 tackles for Feist last season. I was looking at the two wrong lines there. And then Caleb Tanner was a good option there as well as Stephon Wynn. So all those guys are gone. You return Ty Robinson, who had himself a pretty solid season last year, 24 tackles, 2 sacks, and getting some transfers over in MJ Sherman by way of Georgia. Hey, if we know Georgia defenders, that's going to be a pretty good transfer there. And then Elijah Judy comes over from Texas A&M. And then some freshmen coming in that are going to play big minutes for this defensive line. Prince Will, Uman Mielen, and Carmen Lenhart are coming in. Linebacker group, well, you're going to lose Garrett Nelson, who was your 4th leading tackler last year, and your sack leader, 65 tackles, 5.5 sacks, as well as Ernest Hausman, your 6th leading tackler from last season. But Luke Reimer, who was your top tackler last year, comes back, as well as another good player in Nick Henrich. Defensive back-wise, you do lose Miles Farmer, was your 2nd leading tackler, had 4 pass defended, 1 pick. Isaac Gifford is also gone, as well as Quentin Newsome, who led the team in 10 pass defended. In fact, doubled everybody on the team. Who do you return? Malcolm Hartzog, who led the team in interceptions last year, even though he was down the list quite a bit in tackles, had 3 picks for the team last year, as well as you return Tommy Hill, Omar Brown, and Marquez Buford, not Burford, I apologize. Marquez Buford, who was the 5th leading tackler last year, all come back. So very good roster for Matt Rhule to work with. Your offensive coordinator is Marcus Satterfield. Defensive coordinator is Tony White. So moving on to the Nebraska Cornhuskers 2023 football schedule, it looks like this. Any game you see underlined is going to be a home game. Any game in italics or the slanted text is a game the Huskers will play on the road. Green is a game where I think, hey, the Huskers are going to win pretty easily. Any game in yellow is a game where, the other team's going to put up a fight, or it's going to be a really good game. I do have the Huskers pulling out a win. And then red, of course, is a loss. So let's predict Nebraska in 2023, starting out with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I think Minnesota is going to be a pretty solid team coming into 2023, especially if Anthony Kaliak-Manis can develop into the player that a lot of Minnesota fans think he can be. Even though Mo Ibrahim is leaving, a lot of physicality off of that offensive line is gone. Minnesota, I think, is still going to have a very good defense, especially up front on the defensive line. And as well, in the secondary for Minnesota as well, I think can be really good. I think this is just a tough first draw for Nebraska here. They're going to want to try to get things going under Matt Rhule first, and I do have it a game that Nebraska is going to drop their week 1, and it doesn't get much better. You go on the road week 2 to play Colorado in Buffalo. Of course, we all know the story with the Buffaloes. Deion Sanders coming in just completely wiped the entire roster. It is brand new pastures there at Colorado. Pretty much every player on the roster is new, and there is not a single position grouping where you do not have a transfer coming in. However, while I personally believe that Deion is going to succeed, and I think he's going to start winning really fast, I don't think it's going to be this year. Colorado, I think, is going to be competitive in a lot of games this year. I just don't know if they're going to be able to pull out those wins. So Nebraska on the road, very challenging game here, but Nebraska will pull out the win in Boulder, is my opinion. And then you get a couple games here to really start seeing what you have. You've got a couple tough challenges out of the way. You're going to learn a lot about your program that way. And I think you're going to get a win against Northern Illinois, still a pretty solid team out of the MAC. And then Dakotas Crawford actually went over to Louisiana Tech. I think the Huskers will beat their former wide receiver in week 4 as well. So 3-1, a pretty solid start to the season. But then things get tricky from here, right? Because you got to play Michigan, and well, look, this definitely could be an upset potential game. I think Michigan's in for a very special season, and I think they outclass Nebraska in pretty much every single position. I think they're more physical. I think they got, I think J.J. McCarthy's a really good quarterback. They got one of the best running back rooms in the nation. Nebraska keeps it close, and maybe this game is on upset alert for a little bit, as it was a couple of years ago, but ultimately I do believe the Wolverines will be able to beat the Cornhuskers once it's all said and done. And then I got the Illini beating Nebraska as well. Illinois, after year 1 under Brett Bielema, could be a really special year 2. However, they are going over some change. That secondary is losing quite a bit of production. In fact, not even quite a bit. It's losing a lot of production. However, I still think it's going to be pretty solid. That defense, I still think, is going to be pretty good. And going on the road to play Illinois here. I think it's just going to be a tough task for Nebraska. I don't know that the defense is going to be able to make enough plays, as Illinois did get a good upgrade here with Luke Altmaier at quarterback. But more importantly, I just don't know if the offense is going to be capable of getting through this Illinois defense enough to be able to walk away with a win. Tough game for Nebraska. I think this is a very competitive game, but Illinois able to pull out that win. And then you get your bye week right in the middle of the season after 2 losses. Perfect time, and you get a couple games that you probably should win coming up here. One against Northwestern that I don't think is going to be much trouble for Nebraska at all. At all. Now, never count out Pat Fitzgerald. Nebraska learned that last season. But, sorry, Husker fans, I had to throw it in there somewhere. It's done. It's done. It's over. But Northwestern, just not a very talented football team when you look up and down the roster. But you never count out Pat Fitzgerald ever. Still think the Huskers will win that game. And they will also beat Purdue, I think, pretty handedly as well. And while Purdue does have Hudson Card, could be a pretty solid team, they lose a lot from last year, especially what could have been around Hudson Card to make Card a little bit better. And defensively, they lose quite a bit as well. So the Huskers win 2 straight. And now all you need is one more win. One more win, and you are in bowl season. Sadly, I do not think it will come against Michigan State. While I have a lot of questions about this team, Nebraska's had a lot of trouble with Michigan State recently. Look at some overtime losses. I believe that was last year. Could have been last year. Could have been a couple years ago. But, hey, Nebraska's had a lot of trouble with Michigan State in the past. And while the Spartans do have questions, I think they got enough talent defensively to be able to slow this Husker offense down and go ahead and pull out a defensive-style win. So Michigan State, I do have pulling that win out. And then Maryland is here as well. Maryland could be a very surprise team in the Big Ten this year. And with Taulia Tagovailoa coming into town, coming in to Lincoln, Tagovailoa is not going to necessarily have a field day here, as this is a very talented Husker secondary, but the defense has a lot to improve upon. This is a game that early I was probably picking Nebraska to win, and the more and more I dug, the more and more I thought Maryland was going to be able to win this game. Now, Maryland does have questions defensively, absolutely, but I think that offense will be good enough to get Maryland the win on the road against the Cornhuskers. And then just a very tough game for the Huskers coming up here in Week 12 against Wisconsin, with Luke Fickell coming in, Tanner Mordecai going to be that quarterback. Braylon Allen still comes back, one of the best running backs in the entire country. Wisconsin is going to be loaded again this year, and I think they do it with a better coaching staff. They do it with a better head coach with Luke Fickell. I think the quarterback play is going to dramatically improve. I don't see Nebraska being able to pull out the win on the road there against the Wisconsin Badgers. So it all comes down to this. You have 6 losses. You need one more win. It's against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, I think this is going to be a very, very competitive and very, very interesting game. Iowa fans, if you've seen my Iowa prediction video, now is the time where you can look away. Because yes, Husker fans, I do have you beating the Iowa Hawkeyes to clinch a bowl game season. My reasoning for that, Iowa's going to be really good defensively. But again, this offense, who knows what it's going to be. They added a lot of pieces to really help bolster it. It's not going to be as bad as last year. But again, there's a lot of criticism being thrown the way of Brian Ferentz for his ability at the offensive coordinator position. I think Nebraska is going to be able to get that win there and improve to 6-6, which means you make a bowl game for the first time since 2017, 2016. Did I get that right? Husker fans, let me know. Again, this has got a really high ceiling to be a really good team. It's got a really good roster. They can win a lot more games than I'm predicting them to do. But again, Matt Rhule, over his tenure, has struggled in year one to try to build a foundation. But I got the Huskers bowling in 2023. Let me know what you guys think. That'll do it for this prediction video. Again, can't talk. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.